Okay, alright.
We have learned a great deal about the planet Mars.
Add it up.
Dr. Werner von Braun.
A few years ago, one of the things I noticed year after year was that many of the mainstream media programs like Ancient Aliens, various series on Gaia Television and the History Channel all seem to parrot the same story, the same narrative. This narrative was that an advanced group of humans came to the Earth from Mars and that they are responsible for all cultural development, innovation, and even the very creation of mankind as we know it. This was bolstered by news article after news article over the years that would announce that life may be from Mars, and even the odd speculation that Mars is currently populated. Whistleblowers from inside secret government programs would also join the chorus and talk about Anunnaki beings, human origins, structures on Mars, and secret societies dedicated to returning there and even ruling the Earth from Mars. After years of such intense saturation of this narrative, the New Age and ufology communities began to take on this origin story as though it was gospel. The authors and researchers that supported this new creation myth became fast experts that were railing against sinister forces in the government that were purposefully keeping society from the truth, the secret truth of humanity's true origins. I began to call this story the Mars origin myth. So, what is the Mars origin myth exactly? The Mars origin myth has a few different forms. The idea is that the present-day human being is a descendant of God-like humans from Mars. Specifically, that humanity is a direct product of them. In this mythos, a superhuman, god-like race came to the Earth from Mars in order to survive the destruction of their world. These Martian refugees were intense colonizers, constantly destroying their own world and subsequently moving from planet to planet, seeking refuge and survival. With a trail of destroyed worlds behind them, they finally arrived on Earth, where they discovered a native ape-like hominid. Needing labor to establish their new civilization, they take these hominids and create modern-day humanity as slaves. In this mythos, the Martians become our parents, and the reason why we have any civilized culture, spirituality, or technology on the planet. Humanity is fundamentally a slave race. Slavery is the very ceremonial root of our DNA. Everything that is divine about us, good about us, is due to these alien gods who bestowed it upon us. These alien gods who freed us from our beast-like bodies. Without them, perhaps we would remain in the subhuman, ape-like state they found us in. If we follow this origin myth's psychological effect, we see that we are trapped in this dichotomy of owing everything to these hidden alien overlords and yet being perpetually subservient to them. We are helpless and bound to them as our creator, and spiritually these beings symbolically stand between us and God, as we are not a direct creation of the divine, but rather a product of greed and domination. The Martians are sometimes called Anunnaki, Nordics, Atlanteans, gods, angels, or fallen angels. One of their main goals seems to be continuing this hybridization scheme they began on the planet long ago. According to the Martian mythos, humanity needs to be evolved externally through physical genetic mutations and hybridization. The strange thing about this Martian Anunnaki story is that despite this narrative permeating every corner of the alternative field, I found virtually no ancient texts or even recent texts, say in the last 500 years, that specifically mention Mars as a sphere where ancient humanity or ancient human progenitors came from. In fact, most creation texts are metaphorical and vague, and it's very easy to interpret them to suit whatever ideology you want. The Mars origin myth cannot be found because it didn't exist in ancient times. And it did not exist in ancient times because it's not true. And the very nature of the myth works against our true origins and spiritual evolutionary path in the cosmos. The origins and evolution of humanity are described in detail in ancient teachings and mystery schools. They are described as a long and gradual process. The human form takes on many different adaptations as the cosmos itself evolves. The human being is the direct expression and personification of the cosmos. The concept of being made in the image of a higher being is being made in the image of the human solar force, or the cosmos itself, as it evolves. It means that we are a direct fractal of the divine. As the divine evolves, so do we. So the key is that the human form changes and shifts naturally as it takes on the various new cosmic rays and energies that permeate our world from higher realms. This is similar to how we go from an infant to a toddler to a teenager to an adult. We do not need to have our DNA altered to move through our natural human life cycle. An infant does not need to be hybridized with a child to create a toddler. We also don't need to tell the seasons when to shift or to tell our heart to beat. Our process of human development is fundamentally the result of much higher cosmic forces that work upon us. The idea that we need an external force as the impetus of our evolution is false. Not only is it false, it is dangerous as it removes our sovereignty and personal agency. In the earlier epochs, changes to the human form or evolutions of the human form were guided by higher humans. Often these humans were associated with Venus or Mercury. These higher initiates did not tamper physically with the human DNA. They actually worked with the human's etheric and astral bodies, which then in turn affected the physical form, allowing humanity to retain their sovereignty as they developed. All evolutions in this way were then dependent on the individual's personal capacity for growth. There was no development forced on humanity. Humanity was simply exposed to certain higher energies and given a chance to adapt. Any physical mutations or hybridizations done to humanity is not the creation of humanity. And the beings that have done that are not creator gods. It is simply the mutation of an already existing human stream of life on the planet. Mutating an already existing human being against their will is not creation. Where the confusion seems to lie is that there were races of apes and even ape-like people that were the result of degenerations that happened during the earlier epochs of humankind. This was due to some human souls being unable to rise up out of the lower nature during their earlier evolutionary cycles. As a result, they developed forms that were more beast-like or animalistic, and it would be these forms that were manipulated by Anunnaki Martians. But there were already human streams developing on the planet, the Earth humans, the human forms that are a direct embodiment of the consciousness of the Earth, of Gaia. And the human form springs forth from the earth. They were not created by an alien. They are a direct expression of the earth, a personification of the earth. This Anunnaki hybridization slave scenario actually is referring to something completely different, completely outside humanity's natural evolutionary process. This is something that we will continue to explore in this series. You may be wondering at this point, if this Martian origin creation myth isn't portrayed in any spiritual texts and doesn't represent the genuine origins of mankind, then where does it come from? In order to discover the origins of this myth, we have to go back to just 100 years or so ago, to the secret societies of Germany. At the turn of the century, the world was shifting. Industry was changing the way we lived, banking was becoming centralized, and deep within the core of every political party, driving the culture forward, was a secret society. Almost every political group that emerged was rooted in a hidden group that nobody saw. This was called the hidden hand, referring to the hidden hands of power that moved society forward without ever revealing itself or its motives. Thus, society was being led forward not by a natural evolution of thought and creative collaboration, but by the hidden dealings of various groups. At the core of these groups were deep spiritual beliefs, many of them ancient, and beyond any simple ideas of religion that the regular public shared. In their temples and lodges stowed away were secret caches of literature and artifacts that are not to be seen by the profane. Only the initiated can access this parallel stream of knowledge and higher culture that has been maintained by these groups. The access to literature and various teachings gave them an advantage, and in this way, a parallel elite society exists, one that is not collaborating with humanity, but dictating to it. And if it was ever the task of this group to share this knowledge, that effort was given up long ago when it realized that these kinds of secrets could be used to control and enrich themselves rather than enlighten others. And so, to understand the Mars origin myth, we have to turn our eyes to a secret occult group whose interest lies in creating a new origin and even a new religion for mankind. The groups we are going to examine today are the Thule Society and the Vril Society. The Thule Society formed in 1918 and had deep roots in the region of Silesia and Bavaria. The Thule Society was the more public face of a lineage that went back significantly further in time. Secret societies will often originate from an ancient lineage, create a public face for a period of time, and then dissolve themselves when needed. In this way, the public will only see a small snippet of their beliefs and goals before they dissolve back into the shadows. It is important to understand with these deep occult groups that we see what they want us to see. A society like the Thule Society or Vril Society is not your local book club. They are not keeping minutes, and they're not publishing newsletters that everyone can examine what they're working on. When they appear to the public, it is because they want to be seen. And the information associated with them is what they want us to know. Membership to these deep occult groups' inner circle is not for the public. It is an intergenerational membership that is ruled by blood, and they will have a distinct ancient lineage of esoteric belief and practice. Members also take severe oaths that negate them from ever revealing any of the inner workings of their occult societies. It is a completely different world than the average person lives in. According to various researchers, the Thule Society's mystical lineage was based in a few occult groups that merged together. These societies are the Brothers of Light, the Lords of the Black Stone, the Luminous Lodge, and an order called the Martianites. Its creator, Rudolf von Sabotendorf, was said to have discovered ancient Babylonian Sumerian texts that shaped their belief. So there are deep Sumerian ties to the Thule Society. They also held on to the belief that they were the true lineage of the Templars and used quite a bit of Templar Grail ritual imagery. The Vril Society was significantly more hidden than the Thule Society. The only hard evidence of its existence are a few pamphlets. Today, when we think of the Vril Society, we think of the long-haired mediums that were talking to people from outer space. Its most famous member was Maria Orsic. There is very little information about her, and it's debated whether the famous photo of her is even really her. The Thule Society was the more masculine arm of this secret occult group, focusing on developing advanced technology and research, while the Vril Society became the intuitive feminine branch, specializing in mediumship and gathering information from the spiritual realm that would feed the developments of the Thule Society. At the time these two societies came forward, the Thule Society and the Vril Society, it was a very significant time for the mysteries. According to the precession of ages, the Earth was moving into the Aquarian Age, and as a result, it was going to go through various intense societal shifts. It was understood by the various occult societies that this rapid shifting in consciousness would allow for intense power grabs to take place, as darker occult groups would attempt to use this vulnerable transitional time to solidify their power and bring in a new world order that would rule in the coming age. In order for dark occult groups to rule in the new age, humanity had to be introduced to a new origin story that would produce a new religion for mankind, the religion of the new age. Modern religions were waning, and this new religion was to represent the shifting of human consciousness into a more expanded level of awareness. Spirituality would move away from guru worship and become accessible to everyone as a kind of spiritual science rather than superstition. The other aspect of the coming age of Aquarius is that humanity is to awaken their cosmic memory or cosmic consciousness, meaning that they would begin to awaken to the reality that they had lived not only past lives on Earth, but that they had also existed on different planets. When humanity's cosmic consciousness opens, we realize that we are part of a greater life within the cosmos. Thus, this new religious narrative needs to engage the redevelopment of humanity's cosmic memory and include details about aliens, interdimensionals, other planets, and our relationship to them. It's important to note that this time period also included various positive occult societies that wanted to see mankind evolve naturally, and they directly opposed the groups that sought to dominate mankind by freely releasing the genuine teachings that they had preserved. So, at this time, ancient groups from specific mystical lineages rose to the surface to compete in ushering in the new age. And from here, we are taken back to our initial conversation, the first specific mention of the Mars origin mythos. The first mention of humanity being the creation of Martians began through the German secret societies, the Thule Society and the Vril Society. It is said that one day, Maria Orsic, the medium for the Vril Society, began receiving messages in a strange language that she was unable to decipher. It turned out that she was channeling an old Templar script that was written in ancient Sumerian, which was a dead language at the time. It didn't stop there. It turned out that Orsic had actually made psychic interstellar contact with ancient alien ancestors from another planet. Through her, the real story of humanity began to pour forth. She said that a group of superior, technologically advanced humans came to the Earth from another planet and colonized ancient Sumeria. Before colonizing the Earth, they lived on a planet called Sumi-Ur in the ALDEBARAN solar system. ALDEBARAN is in the Alpha Centauri constellation, making up the bull's eye. The ALDEBARAN's culture and planet was degrading, and their climate was shifting, which apparently caused negative mutations to occur in parts of the population. There were also the misuse of nuclear energy and nuclear technologies. Over time, a caste system was put in place to separate the pure humans from the impure humans that had suffered a kind of deformation. Despite colonizing another planet in their solar system, they were unable to survive and had to seek out yet another planet to live. The planet that they discovered was in our solar system, and it was called Maldek, or sometimes Phaeton. They were able to live on this planet until it too began to degenerate in the same way their culture had done in the Aldebaran system. As a result, Maldek was exploded into what we now see as the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. But all was not lost, because there was another planet that they could attempt to make their own: Mars. Thus, they established an advanced civilization on Mars, until that planet too was lost in the throes of war and destruction. And now, with Mars bearing only the scars of life, the space Sumerians had to move on. Naturally, they came to the Earth, and according to this secret society, created all real advancement and culture on the planet. So, through this account, this new cosmic genesis, the lineages of the Thule and Vril society made themselves a kind of royalty, as these channelings also stated that these Aldebaran space gods were directly related to them. So they became a superior class of human, and their direct ancestors were the impetus of not only all culture, but also human existence as we know it. They were the descendants of angelic gods who traveled from Aldebaran to Maldek to Mars and then to the Earth. The Mars creation myth is the Aldebaran story, brought forth by the secret societies that were at the cradle of the Third Reich. The Mars origin myth is the Aldebaran myth. It is not called the Aldebaran mythos because society is disgusted by it and rejects it as Nazi propaganda. Thus, it was simply repackaged, and Aldebaran was cut out of it. Instead, the origin myth has been reborn as the idea that the Anunnaki beings came from Planet X, Nibiru, Maldek, or Mars, Mars being the most recent and relevant point of migration, also the most accessible. The reason we see this propaganda on ancient aliens, on Gaia, in best-selling books, and at every lecture circuit and podcast is because the forces that first spread this propaganda 100 years ago never lost the war. The highest members of these occult groups were brought over by the thousands through Project Paperclip. They then entered into the most exclusive elements of the American government and enjoyed privileges most citizens didn't even have at the time, that most citizens couldn't even dream of having at the time. Of course, they spearheaded both the nuclear program and the space program, which are the two programs in government that have the most occult power and influence. Even the Mars remote viewing session that was released by the CIA and done by Joe McMoneagle propagates the exact Aldebaran Nazi origin theory, where Martian refugees come to the Earth and create humanity. The reality is, we are in a whole new war, a different kind of war. Battle for consciousness, a battle for the human spirit, a battle that is defined by what we believe, by who we think we are, and where we think we came from. We have to ask ourselves, do we really think we can bring over thousands of elite Nazi scientists and not have them bring their Babylonian space religion with them? Do we think they will abandon their penchant for propaganda and mind control just because they've come to a new country? And if they didn't abandon their Anunnaki-based spirituality, how would it manifest today? Thank you for watching. As a reminder, the views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this video are based on my own personal research. However, as always, I encourage you to do your own research into what I call the Mars origin myth. Please don't forget to like, comment, share this video, and subscribe. If you find value in my work, please consider supporting it by making a donation or becoming a premium member on my website. I am completely supported by you.